This is 1.8 my MathLab notes. Multiplying and dividing real numbers. And our objectives today are just to multiply and divide real numbers and solve problems involving multiplication and division of real numbers. The examples I'll be doing from your homework are number 3, 10, 15, 17, and 18. If you'll remember, when you multiply or divide two real numbers with the same sign, the answer is positive. And the key here is two real numbers with the same sign. So for example, negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And also positive 4 times positive 2 is positive 8. So in the first example, there were two negatives. When I multiplied those together, it made a positive answer. And the same is true for division. When you multiply or divide two real numbers with the same sign, then that answer is positive. So negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2. Now when you multiply or divide two real numbers with different signs, the answer is negative. So for example, negative 4 times positive 2 is negative 8. So these two have different signs, and that makes a negative answer. Also, negative 4 divided by positive 2 is negative 2. Again, different signs, so negative answer. Now notice that both of these say two real numbers. So if you have something that has three real numbers, let's see what happens then. So for example, here I've got negative 4 times negative 2 times negative 3. And if I multiply these first two together, negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. And then positive 8 times negative 3, I've got a positive times a negative. So those two have different signs, so that makes the whole answer negative. So just because you see three negatives in a row doesn't make everything positive. It's just two of those negatives make a positive, and then the third one's going to throw it back to a negative answer. So taking a look here at number 3, during one quarter last year, a company posted a net income, really this one's a net loss, of negative $543 million. If this continued, what would the company's net income have been after 4 quarters? So if this happened in one quarter, then we can just take our net income for that one quarter, negative $543, and multiply it by 4 to see what the net income, or in this case loss, would be after 4 quarters. So a negative times a positive, different signs, the answer is going to be negative. And it's negative $2,172 million. On number 10, you're asked to divide 4 divided by 0. And if you try to divide that on your calculator, you're probably going to get an error. And that's because you cannot divide anything by 0. So in this case, we're going to say that this expression is undefined. It's impossible to divide a number by 0. Another way to write this division problem is the way you learned in grade school, 4 on the inside divided by 0. And you can tell here that 0 will not go into 4. No matter what I put up here, let's say I put 6 up here, 6 times 0 is going to be 0. So I'm always going to get a remainder of 4. And I can never find a number up here that will go into, a number can be divided by 0 and go into it evenly. It's still going to keep giving me 0 all the time. Now don't get this confused with this problem. 0 can be divided by 4. 0 can be divided by 4 0 times. Again, if we set it up the way we did in grade school, 0 divided by 4, 4 goes into 0 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. So it does go in there evenly. We can divide it. Okay, number 15, we're asked to evaluate this expression, and x is equal to negative 9 and y is equal to negative 7. And we've talked about evaluating expressions before. We're just going to substitute negative 9 in place of x and y, and negative 7 in place of y. So that's what I've done here. I've substituted negative 9 in place of x and negative 7 in place of y. Now if you'll notice, I've put my negative 9 and my negative 7 in parentheses, and that's very important, especially if you're entering this in the calculator, because you need to tell the calculator that you're not only squaring the 9, but you're squaring negative 9. So if you don't put parentheses around the negative, it won't square the negative. And remember, we talked about earlier that a negative times a negative is definitely a positive. Now if you work this out by hand, it actually might be easier. So following the order of operations, I should do my exponent first here. So negative 9 to the second power means negative 9 times negative 9. So that's positive 81. And then negative 7 to the second power means negative 7 times negative 7, and that's positive 49. Now I'm ready to do my multiplication. 9 times 81. 9 times 81 is 729. Now I'll subtract 49. So the answer is 680. Let's take a look at another evaluated expression problem. In number 17, if x is negative 6 and y is negative 3, evaluate the expression, the quantity 3x minus 6 over the quantity y minus 3. Again, we'll start by substituting negative 6 for x and negative 3 for y. So remember that a fraction requires parentheses because I need to do everything on the top of that fraction first, everything on the bottom of that fraction, and then I'll end with my division. So on the in the numerator of the fraction, I need to do my multiplication first. Remember, 3x means 3 times x. So I'm going to do 3 times negative 6, since I've replaced x with negative 6. 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, so in the numerator I have negative 18 minus 6, and then in the denominator negative 3 minus 3. Remember, for my subtraction problems, I want to change my subtraction to addition and change the sign of the next number to its opposite. So instead of negative 18 minus positive 6, I've got negative 18 plus negative 6. And I'll do the same thing in the denominator. Change subtraction to addition, change the sign of the next number to its opposite. So I've got negative 3 plus negative 3. Negative 18 plus negative 6 is negative 24. Negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So 24 divided by 6 is 4. So number 17, the answer is 4. Okay, the last problem we want to look at is number 18. It's really just some vocabulary here. It says find the multiplicative inverse or reciprocal of 2. And a multiplicative inverse is just writing the number as a fraction. So to write the number 2 as a fraction, it's 2 over 1. And then the multiplicative inverse, or the reciprocal, is just flipping that fraction over. So the multiplicative inverse of 2 is 1 over 2, or 1/2. Remember, we talked about additive inverses, or opposites, and that was just changing from a positive to a negative. But a multiplicative inverse is flipping the fraction upside down. At this point, I want you to start on your homework, 1.8, and do numbers 1 through 20. Don't forget to journal all of your answers and show work on numbers 3, 15 through 17, and number 20.